Three, two, one.
Hello and welcome to week 11 of the NFL season. Can you believe it? Week 11. We also only have 2 weeks today and next week before we have a huge Thanksgiving week slate. And then we're into December football. So it is coming quickly around the corner. Today, the final day of the international slate. So we'll talk about that in games of the week. We're also going to talk some sit start. We're going to talk picks against the spread. But first, let's talk about what we saw on Thursday Night Football. It was another divisional matchup, another one with one of the best records in the AFC going against one of the worst. We saw that in week 10 and turned out to be a 10-7 slog, which the Broncos won over the Raiders. Patriots a little bit better and a lot better if you started Travion Henderson on your fantasy football team. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, had a receiving touchdown. The Patriots winning 27-14. The Jets were coming off of a win, but they're now 2-8. Where do they go from here? That is a fair question. Patriots, meanwhile, 9-2, currently have the best record in the NFL. The Colts are off this week. Broncos play the Chiefs later today, so it'll be interesting to see if we come out of week 11 with the Patriots, who were one of the worst teams in football last year, being actually the best record in the NFL all by themselves, which is definitely a distinct possibility. It was not a bad game, not an incredible game, but there are some interesting primetime games on the slate both today and tomorrow. Let's dive into them as we talk about the rest of the games of the week of Week 11. As I mentioned, the final international game, and what a barn burner we have sent them. The 3-7 Washington Commanders at the 3-7 Miami Dolphins. And there are a lot of players on the promo material for this that won't be playing. Tyreek Hill actually changed his social media to say unemployed. Terry McLaurin, we haven't seen him in quite some time. Jaden Daniels, well, he had a gruesome injury a couple of weeks ago. He is also out. Tua, he's there, and we're sorry, Spain. But this one kicking off in just about 45 minutes, the final of the International Series games. I think it's the first one in Madrid. We'll see how it goes. I actually think the Dolphins are riding some kind of crest of wave of energy, which is shocking. Of those two teams, you didn't think it would be the Dolphins riding the crest, but here we are. What about the rest of the slate of games? Well, in the first window, I think it's the 6-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 6-3 Buffalo Bills. Kind of excited to see this matchup. Both teams coming off of tough losses last week. Both of them really desperate for a win. I mentioned the Patriots, that best record in the NFL, 9-2. If the Bills have any hope of catching them, they've got to keep winning to just stay at least a game and a half back. Patriots haven't had that bye week yet, but it's really probably going to come down to the head-to-head matchup if they can stay within a game to see how it all shakes out, because the Patriots clipped the Bills earlier this season. That's probably the difference between them right now, and they have that rubber match. Buccaneers, meanwhile, not getting a big press in their own division. Carolina, the next closest team to them, and at 5-5, it's hard to take their bid too seriously. The Falcons have faded way back now, 3-6. Saints really kind of out of it. But if they want to have a good slot in the NFC playoffs, they need to get some wins. They need to get some momentum back. So both teams really hungry for a win. In the late window, I mentioned the Broncos are playing the Chiefs, and that could be the marquee matchup. But I'm going with a pair of 7-2 teams, the Seahawks and the Rams. This is a really important one for the NFC and especially for the NFC West. Both of these teams come into the week tied with the Eagles for the best record in the NFC, but they're both in the same division. They both want to have one of those at least home playoff games, vie for a top seed in the NFC. So a crucial win. They have 2 games left against each other on the slate down the stretch. This is the first one. I think it is going to be a good one. Sunday Night Football, also a good one. I mentioned those Eagles, best record in in the NFC. They would be the 1 seed if the playoffs started today, but Detroit would still be a 3 seed. They are back on top in the NFC North thanks to some of the fumbling from Green Bay, but they're getting pressure from Chicago. Green Bay isn't going away. They got that offense back going. Dan Campbell took over play calling. They scored 44 against the Commanders last week. The Eagles are a different animal entirely, and they're going to have to do it without Sam Laporta. Laporta put on IR, gives a new wrinkle, but that Sunday night game should be a good one. Monday Night Football, the Cowboys, fresh off a bye, also a very emotional stretch after the death of Marshawn Nealon, will be going in to play the Raiders, who've had about 10 days off, 11 days off since they're going on Monday after that Thursday night game against the Broncos. Neither of these teams has been great. The Cowboys made a couple of moves to improve their defense, but what is the mood going to be like? Can they get back on track? It's got to be a very difficult time for them. I think it is going to be a very emotional game, their first game since the news about Nealon broke. So hard to know what to expect, but certainly going to be an interesting matchup. A lot of people are going to be thinking about the Cowboys and about Marshawn Nealon and his family on Monday night. I know I will be as well. So that takes care of games of the week. How about we start a little sit start? So before I dive into week 11, let's talk about week 10. My starts, I recommended Jared Goff at quarterback, Rico Dowdle at running back, Drake London at receiver, and Harold Fannin Jr. at tight end. I've picked Fannin twice, and twice I've just missed. He gets volume on those days. He was tight end 17, but he didn't get into the end zone, didn't get a ton of yardage, so that was my one miss there. I was 3-1. My recommended sits, quarterback Trevor Lawrence, running back Alvin Kamara, wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, and tight end Zach Ertz. Alvin Kamara got enough productivity and volume actually to be running back 17, so that was my one miss there. My sit record, I finished 3-1, so 6-2 overall. Not bad, not bad. Let's see how we do here in week 11. I pick one sit and one start from each of the positions. We're going to look at quarterback first, and my start this week is Caleb Williams. Look, he's on the road against the Vikings, but I'm taking a swing. He's quarterback 10 on the season. He's had 25 plus points in each of the last 2 weeks. He's actually quarterback 8 on a points per game basis. This offense is coming together, and I think you can score on the Vikings. I like Williams to stay hot this week for the 6-3 Bears. My sit is Bryce Young. The Panthers are a surprising 5-5. They're still in the playoff picture at the midpoint in the season. That's the good news, and that is the win for this franchise. It's been in the weeds for a little while. The offense has found its heart in Rico Dowdle, but the biggest liability has been Young. He's just had a rough season. He's sitting at quarterback 27 on the year with less than 5 fantasy points in each of his last 2 starts. It's not a terrible matchup at Atlanta, but it's not a great one. He's out of my lineup. So that's running backs, or that's quarterbacks. How about the running backs? Well, I may have made fun of the game in Madrid, but the one Dolphin you really want a piece of is Devon Achane. Yeah, the Dolphins are 3-7. It's not been a good season. Tua has been wildly inconsistent, but the one thing that's working is Achane in the backfield, whether it's running the ball or being the most stable part of the passing game. He's been a great start. He's running back 23, averaging more than 21 points per game. He's facing a poor Commanders defense. I think he is a great start this week. On the flip side, I am sitting Kamani Vidal, and I know you're thinking, what gives? Vidal has been great stepping in for the Chargers, but he seems to oddly alternate good games with poor games. You know, he was great in weeks 6, 8, and 10, but he struggled in weeks 7 and 9. He had a good week last week in week 10. If he follows the pattern, and this has been a pattern for the last 6 weeks, I think he's due for a bit of a come down. So he is a sit for me. Well, that does it for running backs. How about wide receivers? And look, I'm going back to the well starting Rashee Rice. And I know what you're thinking. He is facing a great Broncos defense. And you guys all know that is my team. So why would I be recommending him? Well, simply put, he's been on a tear since returning. In his 3 games back from suspension, he's wide receiver 2. While the Broncos defense is good, I still think Rice will find a way to contribute. I don't think you can keep this Kansas City Chiefs defense or offense snuffed out. They're coming off of a bye week. They're 5-4. If the playoffs started today, they wouldn't be in them. They need to make a move. Rice is still a start for me. My sit, meanwhile, is Jerry Jeudy. Look, he exploded in week 10, finishing as wide receiver 11. That's likely a sign that provides hope for those who roster Jeudy, especially after a good 2024 season. But his target share has been wildly inconsistent. I just don't think he gets enough volume to be a good bet in week 11. He is a sit for me against the Ravens, even though the Ravens defense hasn't been that great. Let's move on to tight end. My start this week, Dalton Schultz. He has been hot. He has taken off. He is tight end 4 over the last 2 weeks. Now, the Titans are on the road against a very weak Titans. The Texans, are on the road against a very weak Titans team. And they're on the cusp of getting back to 500. I suspect Schultz will be a big part of the game plan. He's somebody that Davis Mills looks for when he's in at quarterback. And guess what? Mills is starting again this week. I like Dalton Schultz. My sit is TJ Hawkinson. Look, top 10 talent, top 12 talent, but he's just not getting the volume. He's averaging just 5.5 points per game the last 3 weeks and sitting as tight end 27 over the stretch. That's with J.J. McCarthy back in the lineup. The Vikings don't have a robust passing offense with McCarthy, at least not yet. And they have other options at running back and receiver like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Last week it was Jalen Naylor. Hawkinson isn't getting consistent volume. I like the talent, but the situation he's in right now is not great for fantasy football. So he is a sit for me. That takes us through our sit starts. Now it's time to talk about picks against the spread. After a woeful week 9, I was better last week, 6-8. That got me to 70-79 on the season. Still some work to do. I started off strong on Thursday Night Football. I took the Patriots minus 11.5, despite it being Thursday night and being a little nervous. They made me work for it a little bit, but the 27-14 victory got me there. So I'm 71-79 as we start the day. I am taking the Miami Dolphins minus 2.5 in Spain over the Commanders. Neither of these teams is great, but I think the Dolphins in a little better place. I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons minus 3.5 at home against the Carolina Panthers. I know the Panthers shut them out in Carolina, but I think the Falcons are the more desperate team. I'm taking the Buccaneers plus 5.5 on the road in Buffalo. I think Buffalo will find a way to get the outright victory, but they're not winning by 6 points. I took the Houston Texans minus 7.5 on the road in Tennessee. I know the Titans are coming off a bye, but the Texans have a smothering defense, and they're getting it together on offense. I took the Chicago Bears plus 3.5 on the road in Minnesota, and you know what? I like the Bears to get an outright victory there, too. They are starting to click. I took the Green Bay Packers minus 7.5 on the road in New York. It makes me nervous, but no Darius Slayton. They already were missing a lot of weapons. Jameis Winston going to start. That Green Bay Packers defense has been the best part and most consistent part of the team. I think they can smother Winston, get some turnovers. Hopefully they figure out how to get into the end zone at least a couple of times. They are desperate for a win after back-to-back home losses. I took the Cincinnati Bengals plus 4.5 on the road in Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers will get the outright victory, but I like the Bengals with Joe Flacco to keep it close and keep it interesting. I took the Los Angeles Chargers minus 2.5 on the road against Jacksonville. The Jaguars just not quite inspiring me. I don't think it's a spectacular week for Kamani Vidal, but I think the Chargers can get the victory. I wish they wouldn't, but I think they will. I took the Los Angeles Rams minus 2.5 at home against the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Rams get that important NFC West victory and push themselves into first place for now. I think the San Francisco 49ers, I took them minus 2.5. I think they get the win on the road in Arizona with Brock Purdy back in the lineup. I took the Baltimore Ravens minus 7.5 on the road against the Cleveland Browns. I think the Ravens are getting it together. The Browns are the Browns. I took the Denver Broncos plus 3.5 at home over the Kansas City Chiefs. It makes me nervous. I think the Broncos can get the home victory, but even if they fall, I don't think it's going to be a big spread. So I like the point spread, but I did take the Broncos for an overall victory. I took the Detroit Lions plus 1.5 in Philadelphia. I think the Lions go in and get another strong road win against the Eagles. And I took the Dallas Cowboys minus 3.5 on the road against the Raiders. I think it's an emotional game, hopefully a better game for Brock Bowers, but I think ultimately the Cowboys get the victory. That'll do it for me, and that'll do it for us in week 11 of the NFL season. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Sunday.